Guys, we are live with the Start Build Grow Show, episode 198. We have an incredible guest joining the show, the man, the myth, the legend, and we're about to hop into it right now. What is going on, y'all? Appreciate you joining us. Episode 198, man. Mr. Randy Brothers, we are nearing 200, and it's going to be a super special show. We're really excited about it. I'm going to let Randy do the intro, but first introduce myself. I'm Connor Rodich. Kick it over to my main man, Randy Brothers. How are we doing this week as we get the week started?
Man, I'm excited. So many moving parts, tons of stuff happening. Thanks for joining me, Connor. I know you're a busiest man in roofing right now, traveling all over the place, changing lives of contractors. But man, we have a show today that I'm super excited for. Right, we had our people reach out to Ben's people who also have people, and we reserved about 6 to 9 months ago to try to track this guy down, and somehow, some way, by the grace of God, we were able
locked
to
him
track
down.
down
We locked him
Mr.
down.
Ben Hodson, the founder and the CEO of JobNimbus. As always, man, this is actually your returning trip. It's been a long time since you were on the show, and I remember last time we had a great conversation. It was a lot of fun. Getting to know, letting our viewers get to know you a little bit. But man, things have changed drastically since then. So we'll probably start again with a little bit of a story, kind of get to know you a little bit. But before we dive into that, man, welcome in, man. How are things in Utah, my friend?
Thank you. So nice. It's hot here, just like pretty much everywhere else in the country. But I love boating, so it's not so bad. I like the heat because it makes the water warmer. It's all mountain lakes here, so it's all cold water, You got to go down south to Lake Powell to get the warm water. Utah's beautiful. Company's doing great. Really excited to be here.
Very cool, man. Speaking of, watching, I guess I've been pretty closely related with you guys for a while now, but
yeah,
it's been just so much fun to kind of see and be a part of, from somewhat of afar, but just seeing the growth you guys had and all this. So I just want to give you congratulations on that. But for those who haven't had a chance to meet and connect with Ben yet, let's go back. Like, what's your background, Ben? Like, how did you, what'd you do before JobNimbus, tech, roofing? What did you do before, and how'd you get here?
Yeah, long-time entrepreneur. Let's go all the way back, man. I grew up in the Seattle, Washington area, and so I was around tech all growing up. Loved, especially in college and stuff, loved computers. So I went to the University of Washington up there, and I got a degree in business because, like most people, when they're 19 or 20 or whatever, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought, well, everything has business in it. Might as well get that degree. And I really liked business when I got in there. I was like, man, this is so fun, so interesting. I just love the concepts behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Love all the things you could do with it. I got really into computers, and so I applied and got into the computer science program. And so I got a second degree in computer science, 2 bachelors out of there. And then while I was doing that second degree, I had an idea for my first company, me and another guy, Russ. And that's actually a whole story in and of itself of how we got launched. But the company was called Venify. And that very first company, we raised a bunch of money. It's used by all the Fortune 1000 now for their security system. You know, the padlock you see in the browser when you're running on a secure session in your, our software and our patents are what runs that on the back end for renewing the keys and everything. And it's like, we created a whole new category called encryption management. So that was my first experience straight out of college. We started a company, worked on it for about 7 years, got it grown. And then I kind of got bored of it. And I went on to my next thing because I'm like a longtime entrepreneur. Crazy, like follow-up to that story is Venify got bought for over $1 billion in 2020. So I was like, whoa, that's amazing. We created a $1 billion company. That's so cool. Who knew, it's just really valuable.
How long ago after did that happen? How long ago after the exit?
Yeah,
okay,
18 years of work. From really, we worked maybe 21 years total, but 3 of that, we weren't really a company. We were just trying to figure out what we were doing. So about 18 years start to finish to get it to $1 billion. And I was in it for about 7 or 8 of that. Got it to, we had 100 and or something employees, had lots of marquee accounts. And then I said, man, this is kind of boring. This security software industry, these people suck. It's like, they don't want to innovate at all. They also want to do the same old thing and very risk averse. And I thought, I have other ideas. So I went off to do my next thing. And I left the company on really good terms, hired my replacement and everything, stayed in touch with the board and all that, and just rode the wave as we got bigger and bigger, you know.
Super cool. Well, what was the next thing after that?
It was, so you guys probably don't remember this that much, but eBay used to be like, before Amazon, eBay was the place that you went to buy all this crap, you know.
Yep.
Now we just buy so much stuff, it's insane. Like Amazon Prime coming through my neighborhood 6 times a day, dropping off gear. But the thing was, at the time, eBay was the place you could get a bunch of stuff that was hard to find, right? So my wife was on eBay, she was buying all this stuff, she was super excited about it, and she had all this fraud happen to her. The sellers that she'd buy stuff, they'd pay them, and then they never send the stuff. And I said, man, there's got to be a better way. This whole thing kind of sucks. And I thought of an idea of how I could write an algorithm that would make it so that everybody was trusted with each other. So here's the idea. You'd go on an eBay site and you'd go search up an item. And then on the right side, I had this little browser plugin that would open up and it would say, hey, you can trust this seller with like a 98% confidence rate because of the algorithm. This other one's like, do not buy from the seller. This is like a 10% trust. I called it very uncreatively Auction Trust Network. ATN was the name of the company. And we were only in business for a little over a year. And then we got bought by eBay, of all things. They came knocking. They're like, we have to have this technology. This is amazing. And so I ended up working for one of eBay's subsidiary companies for another 1.5 years after that. That's sort of the rule. If they're going to buy us, they were really buying me to come run their dev team and help them get that other thing going. So that was like the second business is actually the worst thing that could happen, guys, is because 2 quote unquote successes in a row, I thought I had it all figured out. So it's like, no, you only learn when you're failing, right? Or when things aren't going right. That's when you ask the hard questions. It's interesting. When the business is going great, nobody ever asks, why is it going so good? But that's actually the most important question to ask if you think about it. What's working and why is it working? But nobody asks that until things start breaking down. Then they start asking all these questions. So I wasn't asking a lot of questions. I wasn't learning as fast as my third company, which was a total dud. It just like, I thought I ran the same playbook and nothing worked. You know, it was all like falling apart. That one got all the way to the point where I had to short sell my house up in Seattle. And I had stock in other companies. I spent all the money from the eBay thing, trying to get this third business going, and it didn't work out. That's the entrepreneurial life, a little bit of a roller coaster, right? But I learned so much more after that third company than I had on the first 2.
You stole it from, I was just going to say, like, out of all that experience, you know, what was the greatest learning, like acceleration?
For me, it was 2 things that I think really came out of it. One was whatever you did in another business that worked won't work identically. So it's really about best practices and not playbooks. A lot of people talk about playbooks. I just need a playbook and I run my roofing company this way or what. But honestly, it's like every roofing company is a little different. And so it's really about like, what were the principles that guided that best practice? That's what you implement over and over. That's what works. Actually doing the same process again typically didn't work for me. And every company I've had to readapt. Yes, I know a ton about sales and marketing, but every time it's like a new way of adapting it to the customer and the product and all that kind of thing. That was one big one. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I love that. And hold that thought, because we want to get some more, dig a little deeper here, but I think there's some stuff. I mean, obviously this is a show about entrepreneurship in the construction, in the roofing space, but, you know, want to, I guess, ping pong over to Connor on that sense, because, you know, as he and I, you know, are coaching contractors all over the country, you know, and obviously we help them implement a lot of JobNimbus with our clients as well. But the idea is, and we've had to evolve as well, because no one roofing company is the same. Right. They're like a
Yeah.
thumbprint. Like they're all ran just a little bit differently. And the different people, the different market opportunities, the different, strategies, niches within the roofing space. I think we're continuingly, did I say that right?
Yep.
continuing to learn those, things as well. Like gotta love live TV, right? I can't talk today, but yeah, I pitched that back over to Connor because you're in the weeds with contractors. Like literally you're at a contractor's office right now.
Yep.
In the weeds, building out their systems for their company, and speak to that a little bit as far as the nuances and the differences and how that, then I'm going to go back to Ben because I think that's part of why you did what you did with JobNimbus.
Yeah, I mean, and we have a question that actually is funny that ties in here. Tim Brown kicked in and said, what kind of contractor business is not the right fit for JobNimbus? So I guess we'll answer that question. Ty, I think from my perspective, the way I see it is, I mean, the way that I talk about things, and I don't know if I'm probably in the wrong to say this. I don't know if I should say it or not, but like, to me, it's like the other competitors. I'll just say the other people that are out there doing CRM work in our space. Okay. It's like, that's the Apple and JobNimbus is the Android. Now, I'm an Apple user. I like the Apple simplicity elements of being able to do my day-to-day. But for me, JobNimbus as a company right here that's got a unique business model with the solar, the fact that they're doing a lot of solar stuff as a cradle to grave solar company. So they actually do all the installs. They take it from beginning to end, from lead inbound all the way to paid and closed, and all the permitting and inspections and submittals and all that stuff, right? But then they also have a strong roofing company presence. And they, in addition to that, also have, which is what we're building out today, is the ability for them to have separate pipelines for them to be able to keep track of their installation only solar, because they're doing installs for other companies, right? So I love the question, Randy, because it kind of ties into this, right? Is that question that Tim asked is like, in my mind, I haven't seen it not really work yet. Now, sure, we'll get into some of that as far as like some of the things that are to come with JobNimbus. Maybe we'll ask you that question and you can give us some information on that. Maybe not, I don't know. But some add-on things that are to come in the future and some exciting things to be announced. But the way I see it now, and I'm not just saying it because we're talking to you on the phone, I'd say it to anybody, is the way that I've always seen it, it is kind of the Android of CRMs, meaning that you can just change it up, make it the way you need it to make it. And I think the part of it that obviously gets a lot of people caught up, at least from our perspective, is more of like the contacts to jobs conversation, stuff like that. But beyond that, everything is, I mean, you're talking about a guy that does a lot of solar and a lot of roofing, primarily really solar, but also has that roofing component in, and we fully customized it to be working for his business. And that's what we're in the midst of doing right now. So I would say to answer the question, if there really was one, just my thoughts is just more of saying, I haven't seen a situation where it hasn't worked yet in those models, but every model is different. So what would you say to that, Ben, in terms of like that question of like, is there really a business model that you've seen that just JobNimbus really isn't a good fit for?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a couple things. It's a double-edged sword a little bit, but because of my background in thinking, like, this was like in my soul, man, when I realized, like, dude, every business is unique. That's actually the freaking fun of it, is that every time it's like a new problem to solve. It makes it so interesting. That's why JobNimbus is my 10th company, because I love solving these problems. You know, it's so interesting to me. And it was a new problem every time, even though it's just a business and they were all software even. So that was like, because of that, like my whole brain was going with Nick and Jason and everything. How do we make this customizable? Because there's no one size fits all. Now it's interesting because a lot of our competition are actually contractors in the industry. So they know, like from day one, they knew more than us about how they worked.
Yep.
And so they said, oh, this is great. We just figured it out for us. And so now let's just go make software that does what we do. And that's what I noticed the difference. If somebody is just looking for out of the box, sort of like the Apple, and I want to work the way that this other roofing company worked, and it's going to work for me, actually, we're not a great match, because we're much more of the opinion of like, no, we're for customers that want to tweak things. We're customers that want to have something that's more dialed in. Now, there's a double-edged sword to that. It takes more time to set up a system that you have customization. It's just like Android. It takes longer to onboard an Android. Apple is just ready to do a call. But then later, as you scale, you're like, well, I wish Apple did this thing and it doesn't do this. Oh, so we see a lot more of the mid to bigger companies move to JobNimbus because we can customize. As you get bigger, you have to have like super dialed in processes. Whereas like a 1-user, 2-user shop, they're like, yeah, I don't really understand this unless they're technical. They sort of like get hung up on it, you know.
What we always talk about it as you need to be thinking about building a business as $100 million business. Even if you only go to 10 million or 5 million or 3 million, we still want to be businesses. That's Randy and I's lingo that we talk all day long is we need to be thinking about how is it going to look at $100 million, right? And so that line in sight, obviously, there's things and nuances and automations or add-ons or things you might do integrations wise, APIs, all the things. Like you could get in the weeds with all that, but just at the gist of what JobNimbus does as a CRM, I'm fully confident based on what we've used it. I know Randy's had his own company do tons of revenue, that I don't really see there being a place where JobNimbus like reaches its cap, in my opinion, just because of the fact that it is so customizable. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's a good point there.
Well,
take really well. Go ahead.
Take our example. Well, first and foremost, two things. One is when choosing, again, this doesn't need to go too far in the weeds of like, oh, stop pitching software. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to share a story and have some fun. Yeah. But at the end of the day, me personally, I got to a point in my business where, I wanted something that the two key options, like you just said, Ben. One is, the plug and play, adjust your business model to fit into this software. There's a client for that. There's people that might be the right fit. The path of least resistance, just I'll adjust my model to fit. But that also has a shelf life when you can outgrow that and you can keep there's its barriers there. On the flip side, there's customizability. But if you don't, put the energy into customizing in the way you need, and you don't have the ability to adapt and evolve the software with your company, there's going to be barriers there and there's going to be challenges there. Just for instance, I think how long have we been using it? 6-7 years now, 8 years, something. It's been a while. And we have gone through and tweaked and adjusted our business model many times over that. And what we talk about, and this is a perfect opportunity because we'll plug for anybody who's watching in Colorado. We got the One Industry, One Model event tomorrow. Connor and I are both speaking there. We got Tim watching the show with Hook Agency there, Jen Silver, the whole deal. But part of what we talk about is, adapting your business to the ever-changing market. Okay, in this market specifically in Colorado, 4 years ago was completely different than it is now. And if you're not adapting and adjusting your business model to the changing environment, to the changing market, man, you're going to be left in the dust because things are changing drastically. Connor's talking about someone doing solar installs, commercial service, retail work. It's not just just sit around and twiddle your thumbs until you get a big hailstorm. That's not this market anymore. And you got to adapt, and you need a tool to be able to do that. And that's the reason why we've bought in so much is we continually adapt our JobNimbus. We just built out a new section for solar. We launched solar, right? Lead roofing and solar now. Yeah. So now we're building out a whole, how do we track solar sales and have its own workflow? And that's what's for us, that's what's vitally important, because this is for show for entrepreneurs. As an entrepreneur, you have to be able to adapt. And that's going to circle right back to what Ben was talking about. And I'm going to give it back to you, Ben, on some of the lessons you learned to some of those challenges of, this being your 10th company. You bought, built, sold companies, and talking about some of the things you've learned. Talk about adaptation and how you've had to learn how to adapt in the changing markets and changing environments.
It was shocking to me because I thought whatever you had working, man, you were going to build the business off of that for the next 10, 20 years. And I would say if you're a lifestyle business where you're not trying to grow, maybe you could do that, but you'll probably just slowly attrition out. But if you're actually trying to grow, if you're actually trying to achieve something meaningful and really make impact, then whatever you're doing right now will stop working in the future. And this is actually what's called the innovator's dilemma. Whatever's great in your business you're making money on is what you want to keep doing, but actually you have to adapt, otherwise you don't keep growing. And it's the dilemma of like, well, wait, I don't want to let go of the thing that's working, even though that's going to be your death long term. That's what will fail for you. if you stick with it. And so you have to like constantly, I wouldn't say like every day be changing, because then it's too much churn. But if you're growing on a fast clip, you're probably retooling processes every 3 to 6 months. And certainly every year you're doing major process overhauls to hit the next step in your growth ladder. I mean, I think about it as like when you're building a business, you're trying to like, let's say you're building a car as an analogy, and you've got wheels on it and like a frame, but there's no steering wheel and it's just kind of going anywhere down a hill. And then you're like trying to build the engine on it. You're putting on doors and stuff like this. And while you're driving, you're trying to make this car. It's very hard to do, and things are catching on fire. But if you're not every day not sure if the car's going to go fast, you're not going fast enough if it's not almost catching on fire all the time. That's like, I don't understand why you'd run a business if you're not trying to accomplish big things and make a big impact.
Absolutely.
I love that impact, right? I mean, it's like, what at the end of the day, like, money is what, so I mean, cool, you can make a lot of money, but like, where do you really get that intrinsic value as a creator, as an entrepreneur, as, you know, somebody that's creating opportunities for people? It's that impact you can have, right? From a number of different perspectives. And this is a show about entrepreneurship, and I think that hits home with all of us. I know it does for me as well. Of, you know, I do what I do because I want to have a big impact. You know, I feel called and led to really, you know, give back to, I mean, when I get into the story, but give back to the industry that found me in a really tough place, that kind of changed my life and gave me some incredible opportunities. Like, I feel it's my responsibility to give back to that industry, you know?
Yes, 100%. Like, the pursuit of money is so hollow. You get it, and then you're like, wow, this is meaningless. And it's almost like my life has no meaning now once I have money. At least that's how I kind of came to the conclusion. Certainly you need enough to be comfortable. Otherwise it's like living hell, right? But once you're past a certain point, it's almost like ridiculous and purposeless. So like, I get a lot, everybody starts their business to make money, but you have to have a why, WHY, that drives you every day. That's how you go and really make an impact in the world and make a difference, which is what everybody should be trying to do.
I think everybody that's an entrepreneur, that's driven and wants to like be a real legitimate entrepreneur, I think part of that definition is that you have to be willing to constantly be on the chase of innovation and trying to be as well. We talked about with Randy and I, like creating as much opportunity, solving as many problems as you possibly can, and having that like insatiable, like, you know, just like what is the word I'm looking for? But just basically not being satisfied with where, I mean, and that's bad. That's that. Well, for me personally, and Randy knows this, it's like, you know, enjoy the journey. But I think part of it too is like, we're trying to constantly, with that impact, it's like time's always of the essence. It's like, we got to try to keep pushing the needle forward and keep trying to make as much impact and solve as many problems as we possibly can. And so I think that's any entrepreneur that really wants to call them a real entrepreneur is just that, you know what I mean? So I did want to say one thing though. I'm so glad that you endorsed me on this Apple and Android idea, because I was really nervous about this. I didn't want to put you in a box, and you were like, oh yeah, man, no, that's cool. So I'm like, all right, cool, sweet. So that's how I've been referring to it with people. So that's good. That's a good deal. But anyway, so yeah, my question that I have for you is, we kind of, I think we'll probably take a quick break here just in a second, but when you were in these different roles at these companies and just kind of understanding a little bit of your coming up through these businesses, was there well, for one, were you always entrepreneuring as a like, hey, I own these businesses, or was it more entrepreneurial that took you to become entrepreneurial? And what roles were you kind of serving in as you were coming through that that tech background, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, I was always the entrepreneur. Every company I've been one of the founders. The roles most commonly that I held were like head of product or chief technology officer, super technical guy. And then, but because of that business degree I had, my first major was business management. Everybody'd always say, man, you're not like the typical tech guy. You can talk the business and the value and the customer as good as you can the code. And so I ended up playing a lot more business-oriented tech roles at a lot of companies. And then more recently in the last few being the CEO.
That's good. Cool. I just was curious. Wanted to ask that question. Randy, did you have something?
I was just going to comment on what we were talking about before we went live here is, it's like we're literally in the middle of making some adjustments and Connor was like, oh, I got you for 5 minutes. Let's throw a tech question. Hey. And sure enough, like Ben's like boop, answering like the full on as if it were like a tech call, and that's unheard of in this space in my mind.
No, yeah, well, I want to just share my piece on that because I did give you credit on before the show actually went live. That is very unique. And for those of you that I'm not saying this just because Ben's on the podcast, I'm saying this legitimately, like 5 minutes before the show, asking a question, and part of it is like, and I'm not a complete gangster when it comes to JobNimbus, but I know my way around it. And I'm sitting there, I'm going, all right, I'm going, all right, I'm pretty good at it. Well, then I had a question for those that are listening to the show right now. And it was like, in a matter of like 2 minutes, Ben's like, you need to do this and do this. And then like everything. And that is from a guy that came from a tech background, myself being a corporate guy that became a roofer, as many of you know that story, that is unheard of. If I went to my boss, my boss's boss, my boss's boss, like there's no, a CEO, like I was at a sales director role essentially with a VP of sales ahead of me and an EVP ahead of him and CEO ahead of him. And not one person would know the answer that you answered. So from their own product standpoint, so that's kudos to you. That does show a high level of detail, and I think that kind of leads me into I guess the whole reason I say that as compliments to you is I'm a firm believer that in order to, especially as a tech company leader, in order for you to be able to be as effective as you possibly can in solving people's problems, I think you need to know your product very well. Like I don't know how people do it without being extremely knowledgeable about what they offer. So what's your take on that? I'm just curious. What's your take since I'm giving you all these compliments? Like, what do you think if you have a guy that, and it's not like anybody on the show that's came on doesn't really know their product or whatever. I'm just saying like most of the time, especially in your space, right? In the tech space, I'm sure there's plenty of people that they try to lead from the front, but they don't even know all of the things that the problems they cause or the issues with their product or anything. So what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, maybe it goes back to my thing of just knowing the customer. I mean, I spend a lot of time talking to customers every week. It's a goal of mine to always have conversations every week with customers. A lot of people at quote unquote my level in a company of this size would not have any customer interactions on a whole weekly basis. Zero. You would just be dealing with employees. But that keeps you like, the product well. I sort of play a game like whenever we release a new feature or we have it in beta, I'm like, can I be the first one in the company that knows it and has already done the training on it and certified for anybody else? Because job number one is if I sit down with a customer and I'm talking about problems, I better know where the product gaps are. I better know what we have. And I also might know a lot of workarounds of like, well, we don't have this, but you can do this with it because it is kind of a Swiss Army knife in a lot of ways. So I think it starts with the customer.
That's good. And that is very unique that you're getting out there with customers still. What were you going to say, if anything, Randy? I didn't want to cut you off.
No, not at all. I love that. I mean, I think that's vitally important is in any business, we've got to be customer centric. I mean, we met about that and talked about it today, how, we're interviewing some people in our organization and, during that process, we focus on no matter what we do, we always have to be thinking of what that customer experience is like.
Yes.
Our goal isn't to be the biggest roofer. We want to be the best roofer. We want to create customers for life. You with someone who buys a roof, they may only buy one roof from you forever. But if we create an experience so good as a roofing contractor that they're going to tell their friends, their family, their neighbors, or aunts or uncles, like they have a roofer for life, that's the outcome that we're looking for every time.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's great.
Let's take a quick break here. And we're going to have a nice little plug with the presenting sponsor.
I don't know if do we even need the commercial today? I don't know about that.
I'm going to go ahead and give it to him. Let's do it.
If you aren't using JobNimbus, you should be.
The effects that it's going to have on my personal life, I can see is automation is going to change the way I live.
We've been able to eliminate all the paper, all of our paper files, and actually everything is online for us now.
Are you sick of what passes for leads these days? What's wrong with share leads? Or Facebook ad leads? Yeah! Not much, unless you want to be the lowest bidder on every job. I wear a lot of hats. But search engine marketing and website, I've passed off to a Google specialized team.
All right. That was a good clip there. Shameless plug for the industry-leading CRM, JobNimbus.com. Go check them out. So I'm going to give them that plug because they're deserving of it. So not just because Ben's on the show. I should let Ben do his own thing because he's here, but I'm going to do it for him. And then Hook Agency, SEO, PPC, Google folks over there, Tim Brown and the team, great people. Go check them out at hookagency.com. Yeah, so just wanted to go ahead and drop that in here because I think it needed to happen. We were at that time in the show. So yeah, appreciate everybody checking those folks out, and back to the action. So Randy, you got anything, or you want me to pick up?
Well, I was going to kind of lead in a little bit before that to have the cliffhanger, but let's go through for the next 15 minutes or so before we start to wrap here. One, if you have questions, we got a question I'm going to get to in just a minute here as well. But what I'd like to do is kind of give us that journey, man. I mean, you started JobNimbus. How many years ago was it?
Yeah, 2013. So almost
9 years ago now. And it's been just a cool journey, cool growth ever since that. Walk us through that journey and take us up to what's next. I mean, what's new, what's exciting? What are some of the things you guys are working on?
I mean, the big thing for me as a tech guy, I mean, I've been in meetings with top tier C-level people and a lot of the Fortune 100 company. I mean, at Venify, even as a young kid, I was selling to these C-suites, and these guys are all MBA, this, Harvard, that, and that's fine, whatever. I don't care about that. But when I met our first couple of customers, ended up being our first beta, they didn't have degrees like this, and they didn't know a lot of the business stuff that these other high-level people did. And frankly, they were doing stuff that I don't think the other high-level people could have done. They're scrappy, they figure stuff out, they're super streetwise and just really, really action-oriented people, ownership-oriented people. Our customers are incredible. I love them. And they're really more my style of entrepreneur, which is like get out there and be an executor, make things happen, and just get better every day. I love that kind of entrepreneurship. And so as we were looking at building software for this industry, we were like, man, nobody that's good at software is really in this industry, especially back in 2013. And the smartest people in tech in Silicon Valley are making Twitter run faster. It's like ridiculous. I want to help real people that are trying to make real things happen. I love that we're helping homeowners and property owners and that sort of thing. You're making the world a better place as a contractor. You're fixing and improving things and building new things. All those things are very uplifting to me. So that was really the impetus of JobNimbus, was like, how do we build software that makes these guys great business people, makes them run an awesome business and look like the best contractor that homeowner ever worked with. So now, like, you zoom forward as we're building this out, we're figuring things out, all kinds of roller coasters. The next like major moment is when we get a big foothold in roofing, strong foothold in solar. We have thousands of customers now, and then we just hit like this explosive growth that's still going on since 2020. And that's when we decided to bring in investors, because we said, man, we could do a lot more if we had more cash, because we were bootstrapped. My own money, Nick's own money, that Jason's own money that we put in. That's our savings to get JobNimbus off the ground. So we raised $53 million from Mainsail Partners, a firm out of the Bay Area, in December of 2020. That really changed the game for us, because now we had cash to actually spend ahead and go faster. So we 10x'd our dev team. We massively hired up in our support and product teams and that sort of thing, customer success. And that's made a huge difference for customers, because I know a lot of customers sticking with us, especially 2018, 2019. You're like, is anybody over there? I can't get everybody on the phone. It's like, we're overwhelmed. I'm sorry. So we were so glad we had enough money that we could hire a bunch of people. And now where we're going, the next stage is we're like on a super fast high growth on the next tier, trying to like do some really big innovative things in the industry. So we're kind of moving past just being a CRM into, I mean, one of the things I'm most excited about right now is this new Engage thing. It's out of beta and into what we call early access. We've got several customers already using it, and it's a full communications tool for you to work with your homeowners, and more stuff's coming to that. But right now, first version, you can do automated text. You can do group texting with your whole company being able to see one customer's thing. So nothing is stuck on somebody's phone anymore. It's all inside of JobNimbus, all really easy to answer. And to the homeowner, it just seems seamless. They're like, man, this is the most communicative software or a vendor I've worked with. What's so cool about this is if you look at reviews and why people get bad reviews, it's 99% of the time bad communication.
Mm-hmm.
Not actually that materials didn't come on time. Not actually that guys didn't show up to the job. Homeowners get that it's really hard to do contracting. What they don't like is when they don't know what's going on. So that's the problem we're trying to solve, is to make you guys the most communicative contractor they've ever worked with. And that's what we call Engage, because it's about the two-way conversation. It's about really engaging with your customer.
That's cool.
That's prime, right? For what the theme of this show is, how do we do things that are focused on the customer experience?
Yep, exactly right.
Well, we got a question here. We got this one from Kyle Larson. Any move to include an enterprise solution? I work with dozens of contractors, and it would be so much easier if we did not have to log in and out for each contractor. This would be awesome if you could come up with this. So any thoughts to that? Is that something that is down the road and even not even on the roadmap, just kind of comment?
It is something that we're totally looking at right now. So we've been going a lot of big companies signing up for JobNimbus, and a lot more will be signing up over the next couple of months. We've got quite a few people in the pipeline that are ready to move. And it's really the big selling point for them is the customization that they can get. They're too big to use the other software. They have to have something that's more dialed in for their business. Again, back to what we were talking about before, they have to change because they're getting bigger, right? Mm-hmm. And so with that, there's two main problems that we've seen. Number one, they want more reporting tools. So we're working on that right now. And then number two, a lot of their partners, vendors, people, and even themselves, they might have multiple locations, and you can track multi-location in JobNimbus, but some people like to run separate instances of JobNimbus for different reasons. It's fine. But then they say, I want to see all of that one view. I don't want to have a login on all 6 of those. I want to be able to log into one place and it shows me like a dashboard of all the key metrics for my businesses, especially since we're seeing so many people moving to a franchise model now. Gosh, that's popular. I've heard more about that in the last 6 months than I have in the last 6 years in this.
Yeah. It's roll-ups and franchises, man. It's the conversation right now. That's just, I mean, it just seems to always come up. And I guess that's, I don't know, can't speak for Kyle. He might be a consultant. He might be a franchise owner.
He does. Kyle's worked with me for quite a while and worked with a lot of our clients, and JobNimbus does. He's with Furtado Law Solutions, and they do supplementing and those sort of things. So they're working with quite a bit of clients.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. So
that's kind of a roundabout answer to say we know about it. We're working on it. We've already got some new reporting tools that are coming soon that'll help with this. And then longer term, we plan to have like this sort of all access profile that you can move around. So
that's super cool. That's super cool.
Anything
right. Else? Go ahead.
Go ahead, man.
Anything else from the innovation side of things that excites you? Obviously, the Engage piece sounds like it's going to be super cool. I don't want to. I mean, I know. So in the TRA world, right? I mean, we have the tech stack, right? We understand, like, everybody has their role that they play in this, and being able to kind of create the perfect tech stack. And we always talk about JobNimbus and Sumo Quote and some of these things that kind of just put it all together. And I know that you integrate with a lot of those things. But is there anything that's from a JobNimbus standpoint, and if you can't comment, we'd understand, but just figured I'd ask you since you're here, that you're kind of saying, hey, we'd like to go in this direction outside of the engage piece. Anything else that, doesn't matter what it is, but just I'm not going to suggest anything because I don't know. So I'm just saying, is there any other avenue of that of the tech stack that I guess you would be willing to journey down with JobNimbus specifically?
Yeah, this is kind of go back to customers. One of the reasons I like to talk to customers so much, because I used to think more like that, where I was like, what next feature could we build? I mean, that's a little bit of the game in software, and everybody always wants something, right? Like you just keep cranking. But I'm much more interested in saying, what's the biggest problems right now for customers, just in their business in general? What are their big, when you talk to an owner, say top 3 business problems, what do they list off? It's actually funny. They list about 5 things, or always the same stuff I hear. And some of it's stuff that I didn't hear. Like, I'll give you an example. Most owners right now, even the last 6 months, would tell me access to materials is like problem number 1 or number 2 for them. And that I never heard up until COVID, right? Nobody ever said that once to me as even a slight problem. I actually think this will pop off the list of, talking to Beacon, some of our great partners, and even OC and GEF and stuff. And they're saying, dude, by the end of this year, most of that is going to be solved. It's already loosening up for some. I'm talking to people that's getting better already. So I think that pops off the list. So I'm actually kind of thinking about the skating to the puck problem. Like, what are they saying right now that won't be a problem anymore? And what aren't they saying? I'll give you an example of something I'm very concerned about that we're working on some cool stuff for. Most contractors last year and a half have been telling me, I've got too many leads. I can't even keep up, man, right now, because we're in this like crazy explosive growth of contracting, right? What's going to happen when the recession hits? Because it looks likely to hit, and demand slows drastically while supply is up to, you're going to have a lot more people going, the phone's not ringing near as much, and I'm starting to panic because I can't keep this growth engine going without leads. And then you start looking into it and say, well, what are you guys doing for marketing right now? And most people are like, I don't even understand marketing. We're spending money here. I'm putting a billboard up. I don't know. We don't even know what the ROI is on it. We're just doing stuff to try to get things going. It seems to me like there's a real opportunity for some tools to help people get more leads and actually manage demand, and then have those come right into JobNimbus so you're ready to work them through the workflows.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a, perfect, as we're starting to wrap here, that's a perfect opportunity. Because this show wouldn't be possible without, partners like you guys, JobNimbus, and some of the other partners that we work with, and everybody that we work with, or that sponsors that part of this show. I personally work with them. I personally use their products, and we're very intentional about that. We're not going to come in here and endorse something that we don't actually believe in, right? So, when you add the marketing piece there, that's vitally important. I mean, we got Tim watching here with Hook Agency, and they specialize in SEO for roofing contractors. We had Joseph Hughes on here recently, and he's with Contractor Dynamics, as you see over here, and they specialize in not doing it, but actually assisting contractors in implementing unique, proven social media strategies. So if you have someone in your organization that that can help or assist, or even someone full-time in marketing, they still need some education on how to navigate roofing specific social media strategies, and that's what he does. You got Nick, our former co-host, he's now moved on a little bit to more the peakleads.io, which that's a lead generation source for commercial lead opportunities, and they also help with JobNimbus build outs and those sort of things, and obviously Sumo Quote and engagement. So I want to take a minute to kind of show some love to some of our partners out there, because that's vitally important, not only for me as a roofing contractor, but as we're sharing and trying to give back to the industry. It's important that we align ourselves with great companies and great tools to help us accomplish that. And you nailed it. I mean, if you're not thinking now, how do I sharpen my saw when it comes to marketing and branding, and make sure my website's dialed in, make sure my social media presence is dialed in, make sure my videos and my content is in a good place, you might be caught holding the bag when the market shifts, which it's bound to shift at some point.
It always does. It's always a cycle. I'm very worried about it, Randy. I care massively about this industry and these customers. I mean, most of them are small businesses that they don't have anybody to go back to. There's no investor, that's going to give them millions of dollars to keep going. They have to make their own way. And then I hear scary things like people say, "Oh, we're doing pretty good right now. We don't need to make any changes," or "I think we're just happy the way we are." And I think, man, you realize how tight competition is going to get, because you're going to have the recession happening. As soon as we come out of the recession, you're going to start seeing the industry consolidate. You're going to see a lot of companies buying other companies. And then you're going to be against big conglomerates. And it's going to be really hard to compete if you didn't level up your best practices. I mean, that's like my mission. Let's figure out how to be truly great so we can have these businesses grow and make huge impact in the world.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a big gap right now, and you nailed it. But as a high level entrepreneur, you know, the takeaway here, everybody, is if you're listening to this or watching this, pay attention. That's the market's going to shift. And what's interesting is you talk about the recession and those sort of things, but it's been said pretty widely within roofing that it's quote unquote a recession-proof industry. And for what it's worth, like some of that is I can get behind, in a sense of, traditionally how if you're in a market which gets big hailstorms and you got the insurance companies paying, but that's changing too. That arena is changing too. And then you look into, commercial and large projects and CapEx spending being pulled back because, people are scared and not wanting to spend large chunks of money on their properties. However, as a true entrepreneur, I look at that as like, no matter what happens, I got to pay attention to how the market shifts. Every time something happens, there's going to be other opportunities.
Yep, that's right.
Right. If hailstorms change, there's going to be opportunities maybe in service and solar, and there's still lots of opportunities in the space. You just gotta. The worst answer is, I'm doing fine. I don't want to change anything. That's like the kryptonite for a contractor or for an entrepreneur, right?
What recessions do, even in roofing, it's not totally recession proof. I mean, it dropped 35% during 2008, even on repair and remodel, man. It was a bite. Think about losing 30% of your revenue or your growth rate, right? Mm-hmm. But it didn't drop almost 100% like new construction. So that's why I think people say, hey, it's safer. There's still going to be a bite there. But I worry, I guess, doing the same thing over and over again does concern me. But I don't think people realize that when your competition gets better, it gets even harder. So you've got the recession coming that's going to make it less people calling. And then if you're not looked at as like, this is the company I want to go with, these guys are incredible, it's going to get even worse for you, So like the time is now to prepare and just great companies. So like the recession is like a magnifying glass. It takes great companies and makes them even better, and bad companies or okay companies worse. It enhances your best or worst attributes. Yeah,
you're absolutely right, for sure.
That's good, man. Well, as we wrap this thing up here, we always end with a gold nugget, and you've provided us with plenty today. But think about it for a minute. I'm going to kick it over to Randy. He's going to give us his gold nugget for the show here. And then we'll come back to you. So, Randy, what you got for us, man?
So I want to talk to the entrepreneurs out there, and it's something came up just recently with my wife, and we just bought a franchise, and she just became an entrepreneur as well, which is super exciting. I'm super proud of her. It's amazing, but we all go back to that first moment when something happens, like somebody turns over, or you lose somebody, or you get that, a big challenge happens. And the reality of it is, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, Ben, as well, but as an entrepreneur, if you're a pure entrepreneur, you have to train yourself to almost be excited when challenges arise. Mm-hmm. Because for me as an entrepreneur, that's when it gets fun. If things are just worked out all the time, that's boring, right? So embrace the challenge, embrace the suck, as they say in the military, right? Embrace the difficulties. There's no such thing as failure as long as you're learning from your mistakes, you're embracing the challenges, and you're always learning and growing each and every day. And that's how you reach success as an entrepreneur.
Good deal. What say you, Ben? What do you got for us?
I've been thinking a lot lately about where I could level up personally, because I'm a big extreme ownership thing. If there's a problem in the company, it's my fault. Now, I may need to hire somebody to handle that, but it's my job to make sure it gets done, even if I'm trusting somebody else to take care of it, right? I think all of us as founders, and most people probably listening and watching are founders, we say, like, well, we know the company better than anybody. I think it's interesting to ask this question. If there was another company that bought my company, or an investment group, they're like super savvy people, and they brought in a leader to run the company, what would that leader do different right now that I'm not doing? Because it makes you ask a different question than like everything is going well to like, well, dude, I mean, honestly, I'm kind of emotionally attached to Gary over here, and he's kind of bombing, but I'm letting it slide. I'm not asking for him to hit his numbers because we've been longtime friends. We've been working together for 20 years, but I guarantee a different guy wouldn't be allowing that. I think I'm going to have the hard conversation with Gary, and I'm going to do it in a way of, I care about you, man, but we have to hit this. Like, I am on a mission right now. That to me makes me think differently every day about my job of like, what am I not doing that I should be doing that maybe somebody else in that role would be doing?
That's good, man.
Love that. Very profound, you know, great. This, if you listen to this, sit on that for a minute. Think about that. Like, what are you not doing that you could be doing to get better? And I love that you mentioned sometimes, you know, there's a lot of us in this space, especially, there's a lot of family and friends and people that just get hired and brought in to do certain jobs. But, you know, it can work out. It can be a good thing.
Yeah.
But we also have to understand, as an entrepreneur, as an owner of a business, sometimes you got to make hard choices. And sometimes you got to, you know, move people around or remove people that aren't a great fit, even if it's a family member or a friendship.
It might be like, I'm not running a good meeting. Like, I guarantee this other high level person be running a better sales team meeting than me. Well, then freaking get better at it, man. That's like what I got to do tomorrow. I'm going to get better at my sales team meeting, you know, that type of thing. That's how hopefully everybody's introspecting right now and finding ways that they can get better, because that's what it's all about.
That's the definable trait of good to great in leadership, right? Is constantly looking at yourself and seeing how you can be more self-aware around the things you could get better at. So I would totally agree with that.
Love it.
All right. Well, folks, this has been a great show. Ben, thank you for joining us. I'll let Randy sign us off, but I want to say thank you for answering my questions when I first brought you on the before the show actually started. So that was cool. And look forward to getting to know you a little bit better as well. I know Randy knows you pretty well. So, but thanks for joining the show today and offering value for the viewers.
Honored to be here.
All right, everybody. As always, if you're watching this, we're live on multiple platforms: LinkedIn, YouTube, on Facebook, every Monday at 4:00. If you're listening to the podcast on any of the main podcasting platforms, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, give us your feedback. This show is all about you and trying to help you as entrepreneurs and contractors get better, to level up your game. So thank you for following. Like, subscribe. God bless.